Hey, welcome. Today we're going to explore something that's all around us, but maybe we don't think about it too much. All the beautiful and, purposeful differences in creation. It's this idea that's super interesting from a science perspective, but also has this really deep meaning. So let's just dive right in.
Have you ever really stopped to think about this? Billions and billions of snowflakes, and they say no two are ever the same. Each one has its own unique, incredible design. It's kind of mind-blowing, right? And honestly, it's the perfect place to kick off our conversation about the power of being different.
And you know what? It's not just snowflakes. It's everything. From the biggest trees down to the tiniest little bugs, and yep, even us humans. No two living things are exactly the same. And this isn't some kind of accident or a flaw in the system. It's actually a really important, a really essential feature of life itself.
Okay, let's take two zebras as an example. At first glance, you might think they're identical, right? But if you look really, really closely, you start to see these little differences. Maybe one is just a tiny bit faster, or maybe its stripes are a little thicker or thinner than the others. These little distinctions, they're absolutely everywhere in nature. And believe me, they matter a whole lot more than you might think.
So, what's the deal with all these small but really significant differences? Well, as you'd expect, science has a name for this whole thing. And that term is variation. Now, when we talk about a trait, we're just talking about a feature, like an animal's color or its size or how fast it can run. So variation is basically the whole collection of all these unique traits that makes every single living thing from a tiny microbe to a huge elephant totally one of a kind.
And what's so cool is that these variations aren't just for show. They're often incredibly helpful. A bird that happens to have a stronger beak. It can crack open seeds that other birds can't. A plant that can get by with less water, it's going to do great during a drought. And that faster zebra we talked about, well, it's got a better shot at escaping a lion. See, these aren't just random little quirks. They usually have a real purpose.
And that leads us to the really big question. Why? Why does any of this even matter? Why isn't everything just the same? Well, it turns out that these differences play a massive role in helping life survive and adapt. Okay, to really get this, let's imagine something. Just picture a fish, okay? And it's living in this really muddy, murky river where it's super hard to see anything. Okay, so you've got this fish. Now, let's say there's a whole bunch of these fish in the river, but they all have slightly different coloring. How could being just a little bit different in color give one of them a huge advantage for survival? Well, it's pretty straightforward, right? A fish whose color blends in with that muddy water is basically wearing natural camouflage. That simple little trait helps it hide from anything that wants to eat it, and it helps it sneak up on its own food. So that tiny variation in color, it makes a huge difference in whether that fish survives long enough to have its own little fish babies. And this simple example shows us a super powerful idea that's happening all over the planet. Think about it. The world has all these crazy different places, from scorching hot deserts to freezing cold tundras and the deep, dark ocean. Variation is the key. It's the how that allows life to change just enough to survive and even thrive in pretty much any environment you can imagine. Okay, so when you take a step back and you look at this whole amazing system, how it all works together, you start to see something more than just biology. If you're looking at it from a faith perspective, you can almost see the signature of an artist, of a creator. Because from that point of view, all this incredible diversity, the zebra's stripes, the fish's camouflage, it's not just some random accident. Nope. It's seen as proof of amazing creativity and wisdom. It's like purpose was woven right into the fabric of life itself. The Bible captures this feeling of awe so well in Psalm 139. It says, "I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made." And that feeling, that idea, it isn't just about people. It's about all of creation, all of its wonderful and different works. And that brings this whole big idea right back home, to us. Because this whole principle of purposeful differences, it doesn't just stop with animals and plants. It applies to every single one of us, too. Think about it. Every one of us has a totally unique mix of gifts, talents, and personality quirks. The different ways we think, the things we're good at, the way we see the world, those aren't mistakes. They're not flaws in the design. They're actually key parts of a really beautiful and intentional plan. So here's something to chew on. If we really believe that every difference has a purpose, how does that change how we feel about ourselves? And maybe even more important, how does that change the way we see and value the differences in the people around us? It kind of flips a switch, doesn't it? It moves us from judging differences to actually celebrating them.
And this very idea, this concept of celebrating what's unique and trying to understand its purpose, well, that's right at the heart of the philosophy behind everything we're talking about today. This way of looking at things is a really big part of the HeroesMart Academy Godly Learners series.
See, the guiding idea is that just learning a bunch of facts isn't really enough. We believe that real education has to be connected with morality, with good character. Because knowledge is this incredibly powerful tool, right? And if you don't have a solid moral compass to guide it, it can be used in some pretty hurtful ways.
And in that same spirit, there's a verse in Romans that talks about how focusing your mind on what's good and true, well, that's the path that leads to life and peace.
So our goal is pretty simple, really. It's to help you grow, not just in the things you know, but in the person you're becoming. Our hope is that as you learn more about this amazing world, you also grow as a person and find a real, lasting peace along the way. Thanks so much for joining us today.